Welcome to Orbitals, an astrology podcast. I'm your host, William Holloway, and today's show is all about the astrology of the Mormon Church and the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. With me to discuss and dissect is my special guest astrologer, Tasha Beg, the Pop Astrologist. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormon Church, was founded in the 19th century by Joseph Smith, a young man from upstate New York whose claims of divine visions quickly attracted both followers and controversy. According to Smith, in 1820 he experienced a visit from God and Jesus, and they told him all existing denominations were corrupt and that Joseph himself needed to create the correct religion. This was followed by a series of visions, including a visit from an angel who revealed the location of a set of golden plates inscribed with an ancient religious history of the Americas. Smith claimed to have translated these plates via seer stones, producing the Book of Mormon in 1830, a text that became the foundational scripture of the new faith. Critics, both then and now, have questioned the veracity and origins of Smith's revelations, and there is little external evidence to support the existence of the golden plates or the civilizations described in the Book of Mormon. Smith's contemporaries often viewed him as an opportunist or a fraud. The early years of the church were marked by rapid expansion, but also social conflict. The practice of polygamy, secretly introduced by Smith in the 1840s, became a flashpoint of criticism. Its consolidation of authority, religious, civic, and military within the church raised alarms about fascism as well. Brigham Young led the Mormon exodus westward in 1846, and the Salt Lake Valley appeared to many settlers as an empty frontier, a place to build a theocratic stronghold far from the persecution they had faced in the eastern United States. But this land was not uninhabited. It was the homeland to many natives, including the Shoshone and Navajo peoples, whose presence and sovereignty were soon disrupted by the sudden influx of tens of thousands of white Mormon colonizers. Mormon leaders believed they had a divine mandate to civilize and convert Native peoples. In practice, this meant cultural erasure, land dispossession, and genocide. Mormon settlers viewed their occupation of the land as divinely sanctioned, often framing indigenous peoples as remnants of the lost tribes of Israel, part of their theological narrative, but not equal partners in political or social life. While the Mormon Church has grown into a global religious institution, its beginnings remain contested territory, viewed by believers as divine restoration, but by critics as a uniquely American blend of religious innovation, social experimentation, and charismatic leadership with very troubling implications. So yeah, that is a little breakdown. It's something I also want to add in there is that specifically Black people were not allowed to have any kind of high ranking or certain positions in the church until 1979. It's largely believed among Mormons that it's not that the church evolved, it's just that God changed his mind. And so I think that's an important thing to understand about a lot of the way Mormon thought has been throughout the years. It's problematic. Anyway, so
Super problematic. Yeah.
yeah.
It's actually so interesting. So my partner, he is a black man, and just last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't know, recently, very recently, he actually said, "Did you know the Book of Mormon is so fucking racist?" Excuse his language, my language. And,
Yeah.
it was just out of the blue, right? And then now I'm having this conversation with you, and it's like, yes, the Book of Mormon is so incredibly racist. And because there's also this whole theory around the skin color,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
the designation of why you have darker skin, and it's, the whole Cain and Abel of it all, and like the
Yeah.
permeation of that. And it's just kind of like, okay, like I can't imagine being any other color skin and feeling comfortable in the church if you can make a decree like that and
Yeah.
that forms the basis of your understanding. Insanity.
Yeah, I know. I really want to. ask like a practicing Mormon, although I don't think I'll get the answer I'm looking for as to like why. I've also, and I think this was in an episode of Real Housewives of Salt Lake City where they discussed, or maybe it was Heather, I swear I heard something about this, that
Hmm.
they believe Black people go to a different heaven. Um,
Mm.
and I found some Reddit threads about it where they're like, yeah, they say to the public that that's not true. They don't really believe that anymore, but they teach their children that still to this day. So,
Mm. It would be difficult to contest the idea that ideologies don't just change overnight. They take generations and generations to kind of weed out that sentiment. I mean, look where we are with the world right now with, Israel and Palestine, right? Like the idea of collective reckoning will more often than not take a lot longer than what the actions are going to reflect in this present moment. So, to have a religion or a revival of a religion rooted in this ideology and to have very fervent practicing, folk still at this point, yeah, it would be hard to assume or disentangle that that's no longer part of our belief system. Just because you can't see it explicitly doesn't mean it's not there underlying the belief.
right. Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
worth noting that, you said that African Americans, or I guess they started to open up the priesthood to other non-white entities in the church. That happened during a Saturn and Leo time as well. So during a
Mm.
Saturn return for the Mormon Church, which I think is interesting.
Uh-huh.
When you think about, again, things taking their own time in terms of like catching up, right? And we kind of were talking a little bit about this even before recording, but the idea that the Mormon Church kind of feels like something stuck in time, right?
Yeah.
From a conservative value perspective. And you kind of see them developing and evolving out of that origin story a little later. And, the rest of the world might be maybe multiple steps ahead in terms of progressivism, but they're technically still more progressive than where they were even to begin with, And even if it might not necessarily be up to snuff with everything else, I think it's important to keep context that, like, within this Mormon container, they do evolve at very critical moments, and every Saturn return for the Mormon Church feels really momentous in breaking down attachments to the old way of being.
To the history. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that they were having I didn't look at that, but of course, yeah, Saturn was in Leo in the late 70s. And Saturn is huge. So let's look at this chart. So Saturn is a really important because it was stationing to go direct. And it had been at 11 degrees for almost a week, and it was still 11 degrees for like 4 or 5 days before it went direct. So it was a really potent Saturn. I did put noon because Joseph Smith met or invited, like it was something like 55 some people came to this house from upstate New York that they decided was going to be the first church. From what I understood, it sounds like people were kind of coming from all over. So it wasn't like a one moment thing, but I know that around dinner time they blessed the dinner and that's kind of when everything started. So I don't know. I could have put
Mm.
5 p.m., but I don't know. It seems like I don't know that the rising sign matters as much, but noon felt, I'm thinking like the first person, maybe they showed up at noon. I don't know.
Yeah, for what it's worth, because I do a lot with celebrities who don't have birth times, of course, and every time I pull a noon chart up, you'd be surprised at what is being informed at the
Hmm.
moment, and like what information is being revealed. Not saying it has to be like the correct down to the Virgo detailed accuracy, but it to me, I'm always interested in the story that's being presented at any given moment, that informs your understanding.
Yeah.
And when I think about the Mormon chart, like, admittedly, at first I was thinking, that makes sense, Virgo moon. But then when I really thought about it, I thought, oh, given the history of the church and really one of the big fundamental problems with the church was about the polygamy clause and that marriage institution, right? And how I think like the rest of the US had a hard time even accepting that. You can actually see that Aries stellium here opposing the Saturn and Libra of the US Sibley chart, and so you see
Hmm.
the almost like the standoff between social etiquette and decorum and what the church was trying to embody or practice. Um, but I can totally see it being a Libra moon just by
Yeah.
nature of relationship dynamics in that way.
Hmm.
So it's very cool to even think about Virgo moon from like the purity aspect, but Libra moon around dinner time feels interesting.
Yeah, you're right. And then that would be a full moon, which of course, right?
Yeah,
Um,
of course.
of course.
Built
Um,
for reality TV.
built for reality TV. So yeah, speaking of that Libra full moon, we've got Venus in Pisces. So a Jupiter ruled Venus, fertility, expansion of family, maybe many, many wives. You've got the sun in Aries, the beginning of a brand new thing. It's ruled by that Mars in Capricorn, which is loosely conjunct that Neptune, that prominent Capricorn stellium. You have that Jupiter, which is faith, and you have Mars, which is like motivation, and they're drunk on that Neptune. It's like, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh my God. Honestly, when you were reading the biography or the history of the Mormon Church abridged version, it definitely felt, wow, that is so Mars Neptune, right? Like I'm getting these visions. I'm a seer. There's like a
Hmm.
prophecy, even down to the golden plates of it all, Capricorn and status. And when I think about Jupiter and wealth, right? Like they're in that rolling conjunction and in theory, a lot of fortunes like close by, depending on the ascendant, of course. But
Yeah.
that Jupiter, Neptune, Mars, the blurring of boundaries. The I can see where he might have actually got like a word from God. You know what I mean? Like I actually feel like sure, I can totally buy that because sometimes like you'll get a hit, you'll get a ping and you're like, "Oh wow, I didn't have that thought before." But then you throw in the Capricorn of it all, right? And it's like, okay, capitalism because
Yeah.
the church there's a lot about being incorporated and
Yeah.
assets and that's still a thing you see coming up financial troubles with the church as of late and I
Yep.
just find it very fascinating with the Capricorn of it all that sometimes maybe there are boundaries that are also blurred around finances and tithing and where things really go to who's it really serving.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, what was interesting, so
Yeah.
because we don't have the time, I'm
Mm.
a big solar arc girl,
Mm.
just for always some transit context, regardless. And what I thought was very fascinating about this chart currently, I believe if I were to pull up um, 1830,
Okay.
and if I pulled up the solar arcs for it right now, there would actually be the solar arc Aries moon on their Pluto, if I am not mistaken. So,
Okay.
yeah. Okay,
Okay.
solar arc moon is at 10 degrees Aries currently. So,
Oh, wow.
when you think about the rise of the Mormon Housewives, both Mom Talk and Salt Lake City, there's something to be said about that solar arc moon if you think about moon and women. And that going over the Pluto, a transformation, right? And when you think about, and I guess transformation is such an overused word for Pluto, but in the context of the Mormon Church, like they're talking about reclaiming their agency, they're exposing Pluto unearths as part of the transformative process, right? In helping us digest where the Mormon Church is right now. And when you think about, this past Venus retrograde in Aries, and there was again, with Venus retrograde in Aries, there is the rise of that Me Too type of energy, whether it is in that context or whether it's across the board, my needs matter too. And in this case, the women's needs are mattering in a different way. And I think it's really cool to see it demonstrated by the solar arc moon literally hitting that Pluto over the last couple of years.
I like that.
I think of Salt Lake City, both this Mom Talk and the Real Housewives as many microcosms for greater themes at play, right? Because
Mhm.
first two seasons really of Salt Lake City, you're getting this Jen Shah financial trouble situation, right? It's echoing a lot about, the church itself. There's a lot of mirroring going on.
Mhm.
And I know you're going to pull up the chart and layer it potentially on the Mormon Church, but
Mhm.
it's juicy how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
And I think for Mom Talk, that really got birth out of a swinging scandal, which is hilarious to think about why this was such a big deal because they're talking a lot about, conservative traditions, but your religion was kind of founded on like polygamy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like swinging, right? And
Yeah.
if you deconstruct it, so what's the big deal in that? But it's so fascinating to see big major themes come up through these shows and the audience reaction to it and their own reaction to it. Like it's kind of Inception almost.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. All right. I'm
Mhm.
gonna pull up Salt Lake City chart and I'm gonna give a little bio. The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is what happens when high heels and religious trauma collide in a commotion of Botox and backstabbing. Premiering on Bravo in 2020, this icy installment of the Real Housewives franchise brought viewers into the surprisingly chaotic world of Utah's, quote, elite, where everyone has a glam squad, a side hustle, and at least a few are committing white collar crime. Forget what you thought you knew about Salt Lake. These women serve couture and confessionals with equal drama, juggling loyalty to the Lord with loyalty to their bath bombs. Some are in the church, some are out, and some hate the smell of hospital. It's religion, riches, and receipts, Utah style. So, yeah, Real Housewives, like I said, premiered on November 11th, 2020. Now, when it comes to television shows, I feel like I've been doing a lot of astrology on television shows lately, and the issue with it is it's always going to start at, 8 or 9 or whatever, especially if it's network television. Do you put a lot of weight into a rising sign for a TV show?
Sometimes. Only because I think there is some merit in the understanding that, like, cyclically or pattern-wise, this is how we set up as a society. Like, that is our time of leisure, rest, or whatever. But also, I mean, with the rising sign of a Cancer rising with the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, it's kind of like, yeah, that's kind of a sweet rising sign for this conversation, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It really is. And then it's, ruled by that moon in Libra, which, like we were saying earlier, the moon was in Libra for most of the inception of the Mormon Church. So it was having a lunar return.
I was gonna say actually, part of the reason why the rising style factor is because of that chart ruler. Like that chart
Mhm.
ruler is gonna tell you so much about the nature of that show.
Yeah,
And so yeah, I think, by virtue of having the Cancer rising, Libra moon becomes the chart ruler, and we know that it was definitively a Libra moon. So
yeah,
yeah, I think it's worth from that filter even.
yeah,
Maybe not so much like the show is a Cancer rising, but
right.
what
But the ruler.
avatar. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's what same thing. Yeah. Definitely the ruler. And especially here, I mean, it's perfect. I mean, there's so many ways in looking at this chart that tells you exactly what the show is about. First of all, you have that Scorpio, that very powerful Scorpio sun, which is like, of course it's a Scorpio sun. Of course it was a Scorpio sun when the show came out. And it's ruled by that very powerful Mars in Aries, very strong Scorpio sun. And you have Venus and Mars opposing each other. They're both in their home sign. It's like professional wrestling, right? Like this is
Oh.
professional sports right here. These ladies are professional fighters.
In heels, yeah, they do it
Yeah.
backwards. It is super striking. I mean, that Mars is also stationing.
Hmm.
So you know that one, the show is going to be unconventional, which I think if you think about the Housewives franchises, this stands on its own in a whole different genre and a whole different it's so camp. It's so its own thing compared
It
to
is.
everything else. You really do see that Mars station sort of like I'm kind of pioneering a different thing as well within this Housewives lane. And what I love is you talk about essential dignity in planets and Mars in Aries. It's, as you said, really powerful. Venus rules Libra, also very powerful. And Saturn also rules Capricorn for them too. So they've got really well, like, resource planets. And so that's why to me this the show has immense staying power and likability because there's a lot to work with here. And even, we might have seen the end of Jen Shah and people thought, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? Well, they came back better and ever. And everyone they
Hmm.
introduce, even with the newbies, like Bronwyn this year,
Oh my God.
and Brittany, it is
Amazing. So good.
it's so good. And as a Scorpio sun, the
Yeah.
show will always evolve. If it stays too long with one group, it will fall apart. So there is impetus to keep it fresh and going, and there will never be like there will always be a never-ending supply.
Yeah. Yes. I remember talking to a friend a few years ago, shortly after this premiered, and I'm not a huge reality show person. I definitely gained more respect for it during the pandemic. I definitely used to be one of those people that said it was going to be the end of civilization.
Hmm.
Back in the day, I mean, it did bring us Trump. I mean, that's how he won, was because of reality TV. So in a way, I wasn't wrong about it. But I mean, when it comes to at least the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, I really feel like th they have perfected the genre of
Hmm.
reality TV with this one. It is just, it's done so well. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone knows their part. It's the perfect blend of real and not real. Even when you can tell that it's scripted, it's just
You eat it up.
you eat it up. It's just done well. It's done very well.
Receipts, proof, timeline. I mean, Neptune trining the sun. Whenever
Yeah.
I have a client that comes through and like they're like, I'm maybe thinking about getting into social media, I'm like, do it. Just do it. Neptune is going to rise that tide. So
Yeah.
do it. That trine is powerful.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, very powerful trying. Oh my God. It's just like the lines are blurred and it's never been more beautiful. You know what I mean?
It's a little, when you think about it, it's so on the nose, right? Because like, Meredith and her bathtubs,
Mm,
the Neptune and like in Pisces and Scorpio sun of it all. I need to be in my bathtub. You think about like, what happened to the black eye, right?
oh,
Like
yeah.
confusion, mystery. Like this is a chart for just, this is a perfect reality TV chart. Like if I had to cast it, this is excellent, down to the Cancer rising,
Hmm.
because that is very much like for the girls and the gays type
Yeah.
of energy.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yep. And yeah, that Saturn right on the descendant, it's got staying power. The Pluto conjunct Jupiter, that speaks to the Mormonness of it, but also like the constant blow-ups and taking things too far. The sun is sextiling that conjunction. Neptune is sextiling that conjunction. It's just like it's kind of I mean, you're watching, it's like the minute one thing is resolved, if someone else turns their head and they're like, but me.
Hmm.
It's so like,
There's so much trauma to work through. It's amazing. There's a bedrock of trauma to work
yeah,
with here. And Jen
yeah.
Shah's gonna come back sooner than anticipated. They
Sooner than
have to bring her on.
anticipated. Yes, they have to bring her back. How could they not?
How could they not?
They not.
Libra. I mean, it's funny. I can't remember the specifics, but I remember when I was like first starting out and like following. I think every time something major happened as it related to these finances, it all happened at like first quarter moons or lunations. Like for her, it was so cosmically on the clock. It was unbelievable. And it does not surprise me that coming out of the South Node in Libra, North Node in Aries, and this retrograde, like, yeah, her sentence getting so reduced, is kind of spot on. And again, if you kind of believe in like people, if they get sent away, they're supposed to learn and rehab themselves and they come out better. I'm an optimist, so I will always at least give you a little bit of credit. So hopefully it's, resonates with the fact that she's like done the work and that she's getting a reward to come out sooner because she has evolved and changed as a person.
I hope so too. And I also hope that she brings Elizabeth Holmes on as friend of the
Yes.
Housewives.
Whose husband is also getting raising money for another drug blood
Ugh,
testing situation. Like,
why,
okay,
dude? Right? Like,
let's get you on Salt Lake City.
yeah,
Let's get you on this show because the
it's a
FBI will be
possibility.
watching.
They will be watching it. The fact that he's doing that, it's so tone deaf that I would not be surprised if she does end up as a friend of on there. At least
I
one episode.
It would actually be incredible. That would really like, because so far on the show, right? Like we've had housewife criminals, and they haven't necessarily done anything. Although it's actually hilarious. Tom Girardi got sentenced this week
Yep.
too, to I think what 7 years,
Hmm.
which very Saturnian. But when you think about okay, like who else could come on? I mean it just would be a slam dunk to get a real villain onto reality TV.
Yes. Oh, let's pray. We'll pray for
It's like
it.
we can put you in the White House, we can put you back on reality TV, okay?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Before we go into the housewives and their individual planets and the signs and everything, I want to look at just how lit up the Salt Lake City chart is on the Mormon chart. Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
the Mars stationing conjunct the sun, the
wow,
Jupiter return, Saturn conjunct Mars.
wow, wow. Wow. Astrology is so humbling, when you
Yeah,
like see it work, you're just like, bam, that's something else. Holy shit.
yeah. Oh, and then Neptune conjunct the South Node. It's like bringing everything down a little bit, but
Oh my God.
it's all good.
It's like this elevation of fame because Neptune can be such a fame marker, right? And it's not like the Mormon Church had the best reputation coming into this. And the fact that reality TV has done wonders for the church is a very Neptune in Pisces on the South Node thing. Like like the spirit lives on in a different medium.
Yeah.
And because we have the time for the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, that midheaven, 8 degrees Aries, is on the Pluto of the Mormon
Oh,
Church, which is wild because you're thinking, literally, we're unearthing and we are showing this perspective, and no one's done it before like this. So, because now the show has brought on, not only just mom talk, but there's also like Selling Salt Lake or some
oh,
oh shit.
right. I
I don't
forgot
know if
about
that's
that.
the title, but that should have been the title if it wasn't the title. Like
It's something
selling
like that. Yeah.
right. But Salt Lake is becoming like a new city hub for reality TV.
Yeah, it is. And it started here.
It's, I mean, my God, like the Jupiter of it all, yes, that makes a lot
Mhm.
of sense. The Saturn on the Mars, like, yeah, I so incredibly shooketh,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Wow. Venus, oh my God, Venus also that Venus and Mars conjunction, you think about like these are women rising up against the patriarchy of the Mormon Church. Venus literally opposing Mars. And that being reflected from the Mormon Church founding
Yep.
chart.
Yeah.
Powerful. Yeah. I was going to say too, the nodes are squaring. There's a
Oh,
change in direction. 20 degree 19. That is so like that
oh,
is
yeah.
so tight. Holy cow.
I
Wow,
hadn't even
wow.
noticed that. Very good. Yeah.
Wow. This
Very
is a big
good.
course corrective show. Like again, it is rehabbing the image of the Mormon Church, but I think it's also expanding and dissolving how what we believe it could also be. So like we're all kind of co-creating it together, right? By
Yeah.
virtue of receiving the criticism from and the feedback from people like, wait a minute, that's what y'all do? Like what? That's interesting. And even by virtue of Heather Gay, right? Like she's not necessarily my favorite housewife. In fact, I find her a little too self-indulgent,
Yeah.
and just too much. It's very sag rising. But
Hmm.
I think what she is showing is also really important by virtue of the knowledge she dispenses around like the culture and certain things you might not have known. Like that's very important work, almost like a Greek guide, right? Like she kind of takes on that role here, but she's losing me a little, but she's still an important figure on the show.
Yeah. Well, looking at her planets made me understand my issue with her. I figured it out looking at it. So why don't we get into that? Why don't we pull
Yeah,
up
what's
and
your
let
issue?
yeah,
Spill
what's your
the tea.
So here we have the Housewives planets. So Lisa Barlow, Sagittarius, Capricorn Moon, Sagittarius Mercury. It's funny because she has a lot of Sagittarius, so does Meredith Marks, and people always confuse them. In the beginning, I couldn't tell them apart in the very beginning.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They
Now I
they give off the
can.
same vibe
Yeah,
upon first glance.
yeah.
I think it's so interesting because Lisa Barlow allegedly has an A-rated chart.
Hmm.
Allegedly. That would, in theory, if that chart is accurate, that puts her at a Cancer rising.
Okay.
Baby gorgeous.
Baby gorgeous. That makes sense. Yeah, Lisa's not my favorite. In fact, I kind of feel like, as you were saying before, how they need to keep it fresh. If Lisa keeps having the same storyline every season, her time might be up. I don't know.
hmm
She,
She's a fan favorite though.
she is.
It's like I feel like she's like a Kyle from Beverly Hills. I'm not a Kyle person, but there are the loyalists.
Hmm.
And at least Lisa Barlow has very funny like memeable quotes or, things that really drive internet content creation.
Yeah.
Um, Mercury and Sag, like she's always gonna be funny, without necessarily tr overtly trying. I do think this season was important because she did bring in Bronwyn, which Bronwyn was a whole journey and a half for
Yes.
me. I started liking her and then I ended up not at all.
Same. I was a huge Bronwyn fan, and then I was like, girl, but then I'm like, is she as much of a liar as she comes across? Because when I saw these placements, I was expecting more Gemini, but Virgo makes sense. She comes across as very Virgo, very grounded. Um, Definitely Leo Venus, that's obvious. I'm surprised she was the only
hmm
Leo Venus, but I mean, if she's the only Leo Venus, it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does make sense. Honestly, it's when I think about an ensemble cast, like it makes sense why this cast wouldn't have that many Venus like fire. You know what I mean? Like it is fire heavy, but I don't know, it still doesn't necessarily give me that. Like together they make the fire and that's the Mars and Aries, but
Hmm.
individually they're like more subdued, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like it works because no one is actively the visible star. Everyone and with the Venus and Leo, you can't help but shine. If you have
Yeah.
strong Leo placements, like this is a very different dynamic. Miami probably has like more Leo, more fire, right? And you see that is also phenomenal in its own, but it's a very different tone to Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of air. I mean, there's a lot of everything. There's nothing too dominant. I mean, there's a lot of Sagittarius.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like not a whole lot of Aries necessarily, and yet the show embodies a Mars and Aries archetype.
It really does. Yeah. I was
Fascinating.
reading Liz Green's new book. She just put a book out on Jupiter, and
Oh.
I really like that she talks about the narcissism that can be associated with Jupiter. Jupiter is
Mm-hmm.
related to wealth and status, and so it makes sense that
Yeah.
especially Lisa and Meredith would have these like very, Sagittarius heavy placements.
Yeah, I think also, of course, like dogma, and when you think about this infallibility of my perspective, that is very narcissistic, right? Like, I can't see you beyond my perspective, and I'm not even going to try to understand that.
Mm.
You then kind of can see where the Pisces of it all comes into play too. They both operate off Jupiter, like how. how truly confident are you in what you're saying? Because if you are confident in what you're saying, you naturally then give people the space to have a counter opinion because it is not going to threaten what you fundamentally believe about yourself. So that's where I think the SAG can run into that territory of narcissism. Because if you think about it from an olden day, like reincarnation perspective, like SAGs would be associated with like royalty and abundance and wealth as well. In a different way. And again, this focus on like, I have to believe in myself. So that delusion is actually very helpful to my vision. But the reality is, if it deals with interpersonal matters, that's also a wholly different conversation. You can't bring that same mindset into relatability.
Right. Very good point.
I was gonna say Heather Gay's a Sag rising, and you kind of see that with her, right? She doesn't want to be proven wrong, and they all don't want to be proven wrong, but Heather will go through the lengths to lie about
Yeah,
it to the
she
point
will.
where you're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. That Gemini Venus, I feel, says something about how it's easy for her to kind of like change allegiances, whose side am
Hmm.
I on? She changes sides, so that's why she gets accused of being two-faced. I think that's her Gemini
Yeah.
or Venus Gemini.
It's like, sorry, we don't make the stereotypes, but sometimes, like, God, you hear enough people calling Geminis two-faced, you're like, maybe there's something here around. Again, to me, the two-facedness comes from not being confident to state your opinion to the person that you need to. You're trying to avoid conflict. So you're saying what you need to say to not necessarily like stir up drama, but it actually isn't like the most conducive to an honest like conversation.
Yeah, totally.
Putting reason behind the slander.
Yeah, putting reason behind it. And then having all those Cancer and Pisces, but all that water, really, she has so much water. It's like makes me think of that black eye and like she's protecting someone. You're like, who are you when she was protecting Jen Shaw? Did we ever find out where
Mhm.
she got that black eye? Was it assumed that Jen
Jen
Shaw just
Shah.
Jen Shaw, yeah.
She revealed it, I think, I forget at what press tour, book tour, something. And at that point, everyone's like, okay, sure, we already got here. Thank
Yeah.
you, I
Yeah.
guess. It's interesting when I see someone with a lot of water placements in their chart. And I say this because I am a South Node in Cancer, Cancer Sun, Scorpio rising, so I'm pretty watery. Emotional subjectivity, we're going to want to pay attention to because that might not actually be the basis of the reality at hand. It doesn't mean your emotions aren't valid about how you feel about something, but then you have to play the parent because she's got a Saturn in Cancer. So on some level, she's like relearning how to like mother herself, right? Like
Mhm.
you then have to say, hey girl, what do we want to do with these emotions? And also, are these emotions coming from a very different place? Like, we have to be a little more objective. And the Venus in Gemini does save her, but if she allows her emotions to run the ship, then it's kind of like fitting facts based on the emotions rather than allowing the emotions to inform her perspective.
Yeah. Oh my God, totally. And that's a very Scorpio moon thing to do. As a Scorpio moon, I've had to learn you might have valid reasons to be upset, but sometimes the emotion can of being upset will create a different reality about what actually is going on. And it's like you're filling in the holes based on your hurt, as opposed to just whatever the facts are. Like it's okay to be upset, but don't change the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there can be, the Scorpio moons need justification sometimes to fill the facts, if that makes sense. Because I think about
Yeah.
the moon sign as I like to think of often like animal body. So like there's this instinctual thing that happens with your moon sign. And so I think there can be an instinct with Scorpio moons to protect, defend, however possible, even if it means like, I don't know, creating something that
Mm-hmm.
fits a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong because I don't have a Scorpio moon, but I am a Pluto on the ascendant Scorpio person. So, I have had a hard lesson around multiple lessons around accountability in the most brutal way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it can almost toe the line of victim shaming, where you have to arrive at that for yourself. Other people can't shame you around it because then it just kind of creates a whole different situation. But you
Hmm.
kind of have to pierce through that external perception of shame to arrive at the actually, I have a lot more say in how I heal from this. And I have a lot more say in not allowing that trauma response to steer the ship. I get to actually act in an embodied manner because we're trying to pull in the polarity with Taurus. So sometimes maybe it's best I just take this nap rather than dive into why this person has hurt me and how I feel about this. Like maybe let me just go take a nap and wake up and see how I feel about it after. And
Yeah.
maybe the tide has turned at that point too.
Yeah, totally. And that's a really good point too. You kind of you do Scorpio has to Scorpio energy is you can feel trapped if it's being presented to you and you're not ready to. It's almost like a drug addict, right? Like if you're not ready to give up the drugs, you need, you got to come to it on your own. Especially with like Scorpio moons, and we have two of Heather Gay and Meredith Marks. Yeah, the trauma response. It's like at a certain point, you have to forgive your mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, some shit happened. You're an adult, you're a middle-aged person. Are you going to keep treating people a certain way because you were treated like this when you were a child? That's the thing a Scorpio moon has to contend with, and they're playing
Yeah.
it out for us on TV.
Yeah, it's very interesting too, right, with Meredith because it's like, don't talk about the husband. She's, there's a lot about her marriage that is being speculated on. And it is, I mean, as an astrologer watching TV sometimes, like, I feel this way. I don't know if you feel this way, but I'm just kind of like, oh God, I see the pattern. I see where this has come from. And like, as much as you kind of want to join in with the other creators, like, they have like these really like these opinions about people, it's like I can't go there all the way because I see where this comes from. And your job as someone who has Scorpio placements on reality TV is to be that illuminator of this type of shadow work that you, if you're feeling triggered by, have to do.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, and I mean that's the reality game, and why they are so good at it is because these ladies are showing us their shadows. That's what makes it so successful.
Yeah, no
Let
one. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, my friend and I had this whole conversation. Like, it's difficult to watch reality TV in this day and age because obviously there's a lot about political intersectionality and like how that is bleeding into actual real lives. And when you think about then, okay, these are going to be people that are going to be on reality TV because in theory you're supposed to get a smattering or a demographic to get a pulse for where society is at this time. So naturally, you're going to invite people who may not align with your political view, but then they're being viewed in this lens, and it's like your entertainment, but at the same time, there is a moral high ground around who gets to be on these shows. I mean, I was just watching Love Island and
Mhm.
USA, and Yulisa, one of the cast members, she like left the building basically because there have been a lot of videos that surfaced about her using the N-word, her being a
Oh.
racist, like Trump voter, things like that, right? And
Mhm.
so, but again, it begs the question, like if reality TV is intended to show you the worst of society on some level, and that's really not what the Housewives was based on, but really that's what it's evolved into. Like, where do we really go from here in terms of, all right, should we police who gets to come on the show, or should we really let them see them? So we let the audience see who these people really are as almost like lessons for everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And, like a good example would be someone like Jenny, who joined in the second season. Did she, I don't remember if she made it through this third season, but
She
um,
is a one hit wonder.
one hit
One hit
wonder.
wonder. Not like Monica Garcia's one hit wonder,
Oh,
which
yeah.
that was a supernova one hit
Supernova.
wonder.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, Jenny came on, didn't really fit in, and her whole storyline was about her husband wanted to open up their marriage and he wanted to start practicing polygamy, and she was devastated by this. And it was She did not want
Mm.
that. So it was, that was their whole thing. And but then all these social media posts came out of her being racist. And so she was kicked off the show. But the thing is that she wasn't super liked anyway. And I wonder, would she have been kicked off if she was a big hit?
No, absolutely not.
No.
I feel like no chance.
Yeah.
She really didn't connect with the audience, and I think that's the problem, right? Like Kelly Dodd, for example, from OC, super
Mm.
problematic. Ramona, New York,
Oh my
super
God. The
problematic.
worst.
But
But we love
people,
watching her.
but people love her. That's the thing. That's such a phenomenal TV, right? And
Yeah.
you then are like, what are we doing here? And what is reality TV supposed to be doing? Like, what is happening? Because if it's escapism, well, we're watching a whole lot of toxic escapism.
Yeah.
Great. I don't know how soothing that really is. But then if you're like, again, saying I'm viewing this as a cultural experiment and I'm trying to understand how this side of the country lives or this side of the demographic lives, and then you have a problem with that, I'm not saying I like one or the other. I probably
Right.
wouldn't watch some of these people on TV again, but that's a personal thing. However, I do think about all these questions because they do make for very compelling TV, the most problematic people. And where do we draw the line?
Yeah. Someone who was kind of problematic in the beginning, who might be the greatest redemption arc I've ever seen in reality TV is Mary Cosby,
Oh my God.
right?
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
I'm so glad she came back. So she was in the first season. I think she was in the second season. And then she
Hmm.
left for season three, right? Came back in season four as a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, she took a step away and then
Yeah.
came back and were like kind of worked her way back up. And this season, I think,
Mm,
like great season overall for Salt Lake
yeah.
City, but but I think she really was my personal MVP.
Me
Just that
too.
scene with her and Robert Jr. Oh
Oh,
my God.
I know. My
Oh
God.
my God.
Well, so starting out, there was this whole kind of controversy about like her being a minister and that she was like taking money from people in the church. And it was all very like, what's
She was
real?
married to her grandfather,
Yes.
Robert Sr. Yeah, there was a lot
Yeah.
of nebulousness surrounding Miss Mary Cosby.
Yeah. Which, yeah, the whole thing with her being married to her grandfather, her step grandfather, I guess we can say, but still her grandfather. That Saturn Gemini that's retrograde ruling that Jupiter, it just kind of speaks to things being backwards for her. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Literally.
literally just like things a little backwards. And she didn't have the best, she wasn't dealt the greatest hand, I could say. And she did not know how to like interact. She didn't understand that she was on a television show, I think, maybe in the beginning. I don't
Hmm.
know. But then she comes back and now she's definitely more human. And we see the side of her that
Mm.
her son is struggling with drug addiction and he's on the show and she confronts him. And I know it sounds like I don't know, kind of icky and staged, but that was very important. I think beyond reality television, television in general, I thought it was a very important moment to have her get her son to open up to her and then tell him that she's going to be there for him no matter what. And that was
Hmm.
huge for so many
Yeah.
reasons. So
Oh my
many reasons.
gosh. When I look at those placements, like with the Mercury and Scorpio, I feel like you can pick up when someone is being real, especially when they're talking about heavy emotional stuff, right? And like that's a Mercury that is equipped to talk about something like this. And
Yeah.
you know, admittedly, it's interesting that she has a Saturn retrograde in Gemini because when you think about Saturn in Gemini, right, like you're already learning how to master speech, but then retrograde, it's almost like you are fighting the current as you're trying to cultivate mastery over. And if I think about it from a whole sign perspective, like Gemini flowing into her Libra of it all, right? Like, so it's like she kind of wants to, but at the same time, like it just keeps coming out maybe in like difficult ways, especially with people who she does not trust or she doesn't feel like overtly comfortable with, right? It's a very different tone. Let's say her talking to Meredith versus her talking to like other people, or her talking to
Yeah.
her son versus other people. Saturn Gemini retrograde does make me think it makes me wonder about where, not to say like if you have that placement, it can lend itself to like ADHD or autism or like, some sort of I guess speech thing you have to work through or obstacle in this lifetime based on social conventionality of speech and decorum. So to me, like, she's like Heather's like bobblehead, right? Or you look
Yeah.
like your like a product of incest or whatever, right? Like you're saying very outlandish things that wouldn't naturally fit within the decorum of polite society. That feels very Libra Gemini and that Saturn Gemini retrograde.
Yeah. Perfect. Yep. Yeah, some of the things that have come out of her mouth. I mean, she's the one that uh told she told Jen that she smelled like a hospital? Uh,
Yes,
that was one
you
of the
smell.
first. Oh, so good. That was the first episode, I think, or in the
It's
beginning.
so good.
So
I
good.
don't know how I would handle that in real life if someone were to just like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, like what?
Yeah.
It just works on TV.
Her relationship with Angie, her friendship with Angie was also I really loved. Mary's my favorite housewife on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and Angie's my second favorite after this last season,
Yeah.
anyway.
Oh my God, we love a Scorpio rising from the ashes. I mean, Angie, you talk about working your way up. Mary did, but Mary was already there. Angie wasn't like she was a friend of, she was trying to get on. And now the fact that this season culminated in her holding center, snowflake, they're going to Greece. They were like, she is in a prime. And I think it makes sense. It was always going to be there, especially because of how Scorpio she is and how,
Mhm.
the Jupiter in Pisces. Like you think about with the Salt Lake City Housewives chart, there's a lot of resonance for Angie there with the
Mhm.
Scorpio and the Pisces, Neptune. Like, so it makes sense that it was only going to be a matter of time before she actually like nailed that center snowflake.
Yeah. I mean, she's had some of the best insults too. I mean, she's got that Scorpio Mars, Venus Scorpio, Mercury in Scorpio. So she's like coming prepared with the best digs. She's like got them all written down somewhere. I mean, she did have that scroll, right? Wasn't she? Didn't she have the scroll?
She did, she did. You know, I love to hate it. I love to hate it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh girl, that's you're doing it, but you understand the assignment, but it also works for this show. The
Yeah.
show works on theatrics and camp and literally like let's push this to Pettyville, like let's go. And we're here for it.
We're here for it. Okay, Monica, she really made a
Oh
big
gosh.
explosion. Um,
I
I
I'm
miss her a
sad
little
she
bit.
was a one and done.
Me too. Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the fact that she like, had a miscarriage, hasn't like she kind of went through a lot after the show and like but I understand why the rest of the cast like they have so much power if they band it together to be like we're not filming if
Hmm.
she comes in. And I think when you think about a show that's a Scorpio sun, you mess with our trust, you're gone. And if it's a Cancer rising, it becomes this idea of you can't sit with us at this table because you also were
Yes.
not part of this crew. My thing with this show is like they are rooted in trauma bond based on
Mm.
the Jen Shah of it all. And it will then be hard to break that trauma bond. So let's say like for example, if Lisa did leave also randomly for a season or two, right? Like they will always find their way back to each other the same way trauma bond people will always like carry that connection.
That's a good point. Yeah. I do hope that the core group stays. I hope Jen Shaw comes back. I hope Monica comes back. I hope there's a world where that can happen, although I don't, probably not. They'll bring Jen back before they bring Monica back for
Oh
sure.
my God, if they brought them back for the same season of like redemption, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And think about it this way too, like in the next couple of years, because that was an 11-degree Scorpio sun. So Pluto will be making its way within the next 5 years to that 11-degree point. So I can only imagine what is going to happen with the Sun Pluto square for this show. What have we not already seen? What have we not already seen? And I would imagine the Scorpios in the room are gonna be getting the most affected by it. So, on some level, we love Angie now, but my hot take prediction is I don't know if we're gonna not to say that we're gonna not gonna love her, but the rise is high and the fall is also just as high.
Yes. Oh, that's a good point and makes me scared for her, but all will be revealed.
All will be
Um,
revealed.
we didn't really discuss Brittany yet, Brittany, she's also a gift. I wasn't sure if she would be a gift in the beginning, and she became a gift as time went on.
She really did. I think she just owned her flubbery. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
she's not slick. And at some point, she's probably the most simple. I mean, I don't know. She's got a lot of Taurus. Like, she's more straight. What you see is what you get. And she
Hmm.
can be mischievous but it's never gonna be like Heather Gay. And, you're not playing fire, fire. Like,
Yeah.
Heather is gonna play a little like under, and Brittany's just always gonna yap up here. But I did enjoy her by the end of the season. I thought she was a very lovely foil to Bronwyn's shenanigans.
Yeah.
And her petty was so funny. Like everyone's like, "You can't record us," and she's like, "I am not," with a straight face. And you're like, "Girlfriend, what is happening?" But it just feels like harmless, right? It just feels like
Yeah.
a little girl getting caught in stuff rather than a grown woman coming to like a fight.
Yeah, exactly. And like that Aquarius Mars, that's the other reason. None of them have Aquarius Mars, and that adds that quirkiness, that weird side quirkiness that she has. I mean, that video of her singing Pink Pony Club through a mall, like,
Oh gosh.
like annoying everyone around her, and she loves doing it. That was so good.
It's so funny because whenever I see a Gemini person, I'm like, what story are you trying to convey? And what story do you identify with? And I do think she identifies with like, I'm gonna lean into this like I'm myself and I'm just gonna be weird and quirky and annoying, which you can argue is also like a low vibration of the Aquarius energy, right? Because it's like, what
Mhm.
do you really do with the energy that you have? And sure, it can manifest as quirk or weirdness or eccentricity, but Aquarius also the high vibration is I'm here to lead like a collective change or I'm here to do something for the community. I'm here to advance something, right? And there always is a belonging element. So like what are you really doing here with your gifts? She has a great voice. She's got the Mercury, Venus, and Taurus, and a
Mhm.
powerful Venus and Taurus at that. But I do think it's interesting what you choose to do with your tools and your toolkit. And with the Mars in Aquarius, she could be more, she could do a lot more, I think.
For sure. I'm curious about Bronwyn and all her Virgo with the South Node in Virgo right now. It makes me feel, I mean, because that's her sun, her moon, her Mercury. What is she letting go of? What are we going to see? I just want to see what that means when because that's like a
Hmm.
big. I mean, I have the South Node in my Virgo house, obviously, and I've got my Sun and Jupiter and Saturn, and I have my own version of what the South Node hitting that stuff has been meaning to me. It's been very productive. I hope it's productive for her too. I hope that she is shedding some layers of some BS. She was kind of a mean girl. She was really playing the mean girl card towards the end there. Um,
Mm.
and I don't think that's natural for her. I think she thought that she was supposed to be that character. I don't know.
That's the thing with Virgos in reality TV land, there's a lot about over self-producing, because you're trying to get the best outcome or you're trying to secure the contract or you're trying to make this the best possible ensemble storyline there is. And
Yeah.
what I think recently there might have been news of like identity theft coming up for
Yes.
Bronwyn.
Her
So
Wikipedia doesn't exist anymore. I think she had it deleted. There's no
yeah,
Wikipedia for her. There should be one, but at this point, like,
that is sketchy.
yeah,
And it kind of would make sense why by the end of it, if you're not being authentic, and this is the thing with Housewives, right? Like you can curate your way all you want, but the authenticity will always win out, right? Like there's a
yep,
reason why people love Shannon because Shannon is chaotic as heck,
yeah,
but curated is not something you would use to describe her. So like you want to see her mess, you want to see her own her mess. Same with these housewives, but with Bronwyn, you just felt curation, curation, curation.
yeah.
And it just it just didn't sit right. And again, like she brings up stuff with Todd and it's a whole storyline, but then we're fine or whatever. Like when she came to watch What Happens Live, there was a big switch around and you're just like, what are we doing here? What are we
Yeah.
watching exactly?
That was so cringe when it came out that he didn't cheat on her and she insinuated and let it go on and on and on. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
what are you doing? That's where the tide turned for me with her. I was like, that was not cute. I was
Hmm.
surprised. Well, it also seems like she made sure Todd didn't see it because if Todd saw that, I don't know who, I'm not usually on the side of the husband or the man, but
Truly.
but like that was like, I could see her being like, you don't need to see this. I got it. You don't need to see it. Cause like she really threw him under the bus for the TV show.
And I think that's what Lisa was picking up on,
Yeah.
because she didn't react. And everyone was like, you're a terrible friend because you didn't react. And I feel like Lisa would probably be like, nothing happened. So there
Yeah.
was nothing to react about. And
She was trying to
as
absorb it all. Like, her face, in retrospect, she was like, what is happening? What is happening?
Yeah.
What's happening? Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's also very sad. She's trying to go along with the flow, and like let's keep it going. Let's see where this keeps going, right?
Yeah.
She knows what to do also. So, yeah, it was just really disingenuous for Bronwyn to do that. She didn't have to do that either. Like she seems like a very interesting person on her own
Right.
without roping in these tropes that this is what I think I have to do or the role I have to play Venus and Leo to be a housewife.
Yeah. Very good point. And I think that what people like about her, what I liked about her, and probably what you liked about her was as flashy as she was with that Venus and Leo, all that Virgo energy, she was, at least for the first half of the season, she was kind of, what do they call it? Like, she was like the audience voice. You always need to have someone who's like saying what everyone that's watching is thinking. And she,
Hmm.
with that, all that Virgo stuff, she has that ability. It's when she goes into the fake stuff, she doesn't need to do that. She does not need to
Hmm.
create drama like the other ones do. I think the ones with the more Sagittarius placements, it's easier for them to live in these like fantasy bubbles where lines are crossed. I don't think Bronwyn can do that. It's not going to work for her. So when she comes back next season, she's going to need to just be actually herself and not create anything, and she'll be fine. Be the voice of the audience for us, please.
I'm excited for them to like here's the thing, right? Like in order to really survive on these shows, you have to repent, you have to take it on the chin, and you have to kind of move on. And I think that's why I really appreciate about these shows from a spiritual level, I guess, is as much as in real life, like you're gonna run into conflict with your friends, you're never gonna be put in a situation where you really have to mend conflict in order for this to move on. And this is the art of direct confrontation.
Yeah,
I have to take accountability. And like we're gonna hash it out until we arrive at a point. But I think it's a very fascinating lesson in the way we communicate with each other. We confront each other, especially in the context of female friendship. And this is where sometimes the show loses me in general, like this, because if you are all friends, which these people are, so you can kind of really see the true drama. But if you're not friends, you're just colleagues. I'm not trying to have this in-depth conversation with a colleague. Like, I would just tell this colleague to fuck off and, like, I'll move on or something. But if you have real friendship, it then feels so much more higher stakes. And that's why you cannot disrupt the core four or this core group here because they are really built on real friendship.
yeah, they are. I feel like we covered that. Do you think we covered that?
I think so. I think it's always so juicy. That's the beauty of it, right? Astrology and reality TV. There's just like always so many things to talk about because it's a very healthy breeding ground for the intersectionality of fake life, but also like real life. And I think this is so Saturn, Neptune, and Aries coded.
It really is. Oh, I love it. Well, I can't wait for next season. To me, Salt Lake City is event television, and aren't too many shows that I feel that way about. So
Yes.
maybe we'll have to do a recap show when it comes out.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially this season, like I'm excited to see how the transits play out via the show.
Me
Because
too.
I mean, oh my God, what a season we've just come out of.
Yeah. We're at the end, but I have the game. Do you want to
Yes,
play? All
let's
right.
play.
So this is the Wheel of Fate. The way we play it, it's pretty simple. I spin the wheel, lands on a random planet, then I spin another wheel that will land on a random sign, and we just riff on that. And that's
Sweet.
that.
I'm so excited.
Mercury. Okay.
We love Mercury.
Mercury in. Oh. Oh.
Oh, almost.
Almost. I was like, so Mercury and Leo.
Woo! My
Ooh.
natal placement.
Okay.
And
Well
I do
then,
pop culture.
oh my God, this is perfect. Do you know what I've learned that's been amazing about doing this silly little game is that it always lands on something relevant to what we're talking about. So,
We'd
I
love to
mean,
see that.
Mercury and Leo talking about pop culture, talking about, yeah, I mean, literally what we just did was very Mercury and Leo.
I have a Jupiter also in Leo, like it's on my midheaven, and Mercury's in a rolling conjunction with that. So I remember when I was trying to like write entertainment, like natal chart stuff for certain astrologer, it was so funny because I remember my pitch would be, I have Mercury and Jupiter in Leo on my midheaven. I think I'm qualified. Like that was basically the ethos of my sentiment and or like my message. And then I got the job and I was like, yeah, astrology really just can't be beat.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Mercury and Leo, I think of literally, like I just said, what we were just talking about was very Mercury and Leo.
Yes.
I don't even know what else to say about it. Like,
We embodied Mercury and Leo in a nutshell. I mean, it's interesting, right? Because Mercury rules Gemini, Virgo traditionally.
yeah.
And you think about, okay, Gemini, there's a storyteller there. Virgo, there is, the craftsperson, someone that can like really hone the details and the research and ground the observations and the stories. But then you get to Mercury and Leo, right? And for me, and I'm very biased, obviously, I feel like that is another type of storyteller placement, Leo, because
Mm,
Leo, you think about performance and you think about like again, the royal courts, the court jester or something like there's a king, there's entertainment, there's all these things, but a Leo Mercury is looking to share its vulnerability, share its creativity, and really craft and tell a mesmerizing story, right? So there's a lot of similarity, actually, I think, with Gemini. They get along very well. Um, with Virgo, there is this element also of like, I'm here to do my best. So I love. I love my Mercury and Leo. It's taken me a second to really own it because I think it's also like a truth serum. Mercury is
mm,
like the microphone. And so when you hold the microphone up to authenticity, it will always shine the brightest when you are naturally being yourself. And then that's when things resonate. But if you're trying to chase the applause with that Mercury in Leo, it becomes a self-defeating game because
mm.
you're never going to feel good. You're always going to feel uncomfortable saying what you got to say. And I think for Mercury and Leo, you have to really understand confidence that it doesn't come from other people telling you this is good or not. I mean, validation is really important, but where you really build the confidence is, again, do I feel like I want to share what I have to say? Do I feel unrestricted with what I have to say? And can I say it in the most theatrical, like most colorful way of grabbing your attention? Because what I have to say is actually really fucking important and it
Yeah.
deserves to feel important and it deserves a stage. So I don't know necessarily like where that is going or where that's coming from, but I think there's a lot about owning confidence and owning your work with Mercury and Leo and being unafraid to just lean in, even if it might seem tacky or popular or like late or whatever. If it feels good to you, it's fucking good. That's period dot.
Yes. There you go. That's it. That's it. That is it. That is Mercury and Leo right there. You just gave it to us. I couldn't add anything to it. Don't need to. That was it.
It does square my Pluto in Scorpio, so there is a truth serum. There is a
The
little bit of a
truth
truth
serum.
serum,
That's good though. I
yes.
mean, you need to have that. I mean, and you're good at it. So,
Oh, I appreciate that.
yeah.
I say I'm
So
not a fan of celebrity, but I am interested in understanding who they are behind the sheen.
I love it. This was so much fun. Do you want to, what do you have going on right now, Tasha? What
What
do
do I
you
have
got
going
going on?
on? Let's see. So, oh my gosh, I am actually winding my books down a little bit for this summer. I think I'm going to be definitely focusing a lot more on like content creation, although I love my client work. I have long-term client work. But I'm actually going to be speaking at a conference coming
Ooh,
up, a virtual conference.
okay.
I'm not sure promo has gone out for that yet, but I will be talking about a more serious topic. I'm applying Bell Hooks's work all about love, and I'm looking at it through an astral lens, essentially. How to really take her theory and maybe using the language of astrology, implement it in a way that can feel more tangible, because her work is so beautiful.
Hmm.
And for me, when I was reading it, I just could not help but draw all the connections to that corresponds to that planet, that corresponds to this. And so almost like to honor her work and to then maybe put a little Virgo on it, like, and then these are extra tools that can help you get closer to like what she was hoping to do.
Oh, I love that. When is that? And it's virtual. So,
That is virtual, yes. It's called, I think, the Revolution Rising Conference, and that
okay.
is coming up in August this year. Yeah.
That's so exciting. Cool.
Yes, thank you. I know serious conversations, but still involving pop culture somehow.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Cool. Well, I'm going to check that out. And I'll put all of your links below. So anywhere that anyone's listening or watching, they can check your work out. They can book readings. They can find all the things. It was so fun doing this. Thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Oh my God. Anytime. I am just so happy to get to connect with you and to like have this conversation. Like it always just like reinvigorates me. Like I have to go smoke a joint after this and like calm down,
Me too.
because
Me too.
obsessed.